The purpose of this video is to give you a little bit of an introductory explainer on the readings for today by Martha Nussbaum and on the capabilities approach in general. So it helps to start understanding the capabilities approach against the background of the concept of freedom. So there are basically two concepts of freedom throughout pretty much the history of philosophy. One, and this isn't a value judgment, is the concept of freedom as negative freedom. That doesn't mean a bad kind of freedom. It simply means understanding freedom in terms of things that are not happening, right? Negative, not. So understanding freedom in negative terms means that a person is free when the person is not facing external prohibitions or constraints on doing what they want to do or being who they want to be. Freedom means not stopping people from pursuing the kind of life that they want to live. And so primarily the concept of negative freedom is freedom from. And the freedom that what you're free from in this concept is primarily interference, outside interference by other people in pursuing your own goals. Now, in contrast to this concept of negative freedom, there has also been, throughout the history of philosophy, a different understanding of what it means to be free. And this is sometimes referred to as positive or substantive freedom. So here, to be free means you have the actual ability to do something or to be something. Having a free society means that people are provided with the social conditions and the means and the resources that they need to choose to live the sorts of lives that they value. And here, the concept of freedom is primarily a concept of freedom for something or freedom to do something. And for people to be free means that they need to be assisted with the pursuit of their goal. So let's see how this works out with the capabilities approach. There are two distinctive versions of the capabilities approach. Amartya Sen, who we talked about a little bit with the Human Development Index, he was one of the first articulators of the capabilities approach, and he understood the process of development, of human development, as one of enlarging people's freedom. He wrote a famous book called Development as Freedom. And here he means freedom in the positive sense. He primarily used the notion of capabilities to talk about comparative quality of life assessments between countries. Not just how much money people had in different countries or how big different countries' economies were, but how did people enjoy different levels of quality of life in different countries. And he used the concept of capability to guide practices in international development. Amartya Sen does not, on principle, he does not make a list of capabilities that he thinks all humans should have. He believed that the capabilities approach should be what he called deliberately incomplete. And this means that he wanted to leave it up to people to decide what kinds of, he called them beings and doings or functionings, to decide which of those they valued. But his vocabulary is primarily centered around a causal chain, and we'll go through this chain in just a minute. People need resources, and resources are converted into capabilities, and capabilities through personal choice are converted into functionings. And it was the sphere of capabilities as understood as positive freedoms that Amartya Sen wanted to enlarge. Martha Nussbaum, on the other hand, talks about the goal of the capabilities approach as making sure that people have lives worthy of human dignity. And she uses the capabilities approach to construct an account of basic social justice. What does it mean for a society to live up to a basic minimum in terms of justice? Amartya Sen is not really interested in using the capabilities approach to construct an account of justice. Martha Nussbaum believes that non-human animals also have capabilities. By contrast, Amartya Sen is mostly interested strictly in human freedoms, human capabilities. You'll pick up on Martha Nussbaum's interest in non-human animals and also non-human nature as you read her excerpts from her book for today. Martha Nussbaum is not shy about making a list of capabilities. She has a list of 10 capabilities, and we'll go through this list in class. She deems these capabilities to be central. She also brings in a concept of a threshold. So she talks about every human being needing to have all 10 of these capabilities to a threshold of adequacy. And that when that happens, that's when we know we have basic social justice, when every single individual human being in a society has all 10 capabilities to a threshold of adequacy. And her sort of conceptual vocabulary is slightly different from Amartya Sen's. Sen talks about resources being converted into capabilities and those being converted into functionings. She talks about basic capabilities and those being converted into internal capabilities, and then those being converted into combined capabilities, and then into functionings. So we'll go over that in more detail, but either way, they have a shared understanding of poverty. So they do not see poverty as having just a low income. Income is just a resource, and the only reason income is valuable is because it helps you be and do the things that you want to be and do. They also don't see poverty as a lack of some commodity. Think of the multidimensional poverty index, not having electricity, not having protein every other day. They don't see it in that sense. They really see poverty as the lack of positive freedom to achieve your own well-being. And in the technical jargon that they like to use, this is basically an inability to realize the functionings that you value. It's not being free to lead the sort of life that you want to lead. And in this sense, it's a deprivation of basic agency in life. Martha Nussbaum would define poverty as not having this adequate threshold of all 10 of the basic or the central capabilities. So this is really how they define poverty. And in this sense, it's really just not being able to be and do things that are important to you. And so you could say that poverty in the capabilities approach means being capability deprived, not necessarily having low income or not having certain things. In this sense, they understand poverty as really sort of being freedom poor, not necessarily resource poor. So here is how Amartya Sen approaches this causal chain. So resources are things that have purely instrumental value. They're just means. The reason we like having money in our pockets is not because money itself has any intrinsic value, but because it helps us get the things that we want to get and be and do things that we want to be and do. So material goods, income, and wealth would be resources. And different kinds of people can convert different kinds of resources into capabilities. So think, for example, of the resources that a wheelchair-bound person might need in order to convert that into a basic capability to work. They're going to need slightly different amounts of resources and slightly different resources themselves than a person who is not wheelchair-bound. So different people need different amounts of resources to convert them into the same level of capability. And people's ability to convert resources into capabilities can be affected not only by their own personal characteristics, say being disabled or having a mental illness, but also by how their society is arranged. So part of people being able to convert resources into capabilities has to do with the rules and the laws and the social systems and the social conditions in a country. Think, for example, of certain countries where women are not permitted to drive. So a capability, a basic capability, an important capability is the ability to move from place to place. So it turns out that women have an unequal capability to move about from place to place unless, like some very wealthy women in these countries, they have a personal male relative who acts as their chauffeur. So that would be a different level of resources that they would need to have the capability to move about from place to place. And this would cause very serious concerns to someone like Amartya Sen. So the inherent gender discrimination in driving would create an inequality in capabilities. But from capabilities to functionings is not automatic. So societies can secure to people certain basic freedoms, capabilities, but they only actually achieve the things that they want to value when they choose to realize those capabilities as functionings. And functionings are pretty much anything with an ing on the end of it. Eating, staying healthy, being able to work, right? All of those sorts of things are functionings. And he says, there are some things that it's reasonable, there are functionings that it's reasonable for people to want. There are some that it's not reasonable for people to want, and he's prepared to rule those out. But everyone really needs to be secured a basic amount of capability, and then it's up to them through the mode of choice to realize those as functionings. And so it's the goal of human development and international development to secure to people, to enlarge as much as possible the sphere of capabilities, to get them in a position where they are free to achieve well-being as they see it, free in positive terms. For Martha Nussbaum, she uses a slightly different set of categories in her causal chain. So she talks about basic capabilities as fundamentally innate. So there's certain things that human beings are just sort of naturally equipped to do or not do. And here you might think about things like, cognitive capacity. But these are things that can either be nurtured or not nurtured. So think about someone who may be born with certain kinds of cognitive disabilities or disorders. They could receive very wonderful treatments and therapies to increase as much as possible or to maximize their cognitive abilities. Someone else who's born with the same set of disabilities or disorders might not receive those things, but they might start with the same set of basic capabilities. So basic capabilities can be combined with certain enabling conditions. These are social conditions, economic conditions, political conditions, all kinds of things, to form internal capabilities. So the person born with cognitive limitations who receives wonderful therapies and treatments would be enjoying the enabling conditions so that their internal capabilities would be higher. And so internal capabilities she defines as after the learning, training, or development, a person's basic skills and abilities after, in an enabling environment, they have been developed. And then internal capabilities are combined with more enabling social conditions, and those together are combined capabilities. But here is where her system really mirrors Amartya Sen's. So they both believe that functioning is on the other side of choice from capabilities. So think, for example, of a society where the person born with certain cognitive disabilities was stigmatized or legally barred, let's say, from working or from being outside the home or from going to school. that would be where a person's combined capabilities were being lowered by not enabling but disabling social conditions. The stigma or the discrimination against persons with disabilities would lower their overall combined capabilities. But it's really the core similarity between Sen and Nussbaum is this idea that capabilities are converted into functionings through people's choices. So there's a difference between promoting health capability. That means making it so that people are really able to achieve health. Putting all the means, it's like setting the table, putting all the stuff out there that they need in order for them, through choice, to achieve the functioning of healthy living. And the other way of doing this would be to promote health rather than health capability. In other words, to ban, let's say, sugary drinks, right? Or just make it so that everyone has to go to the doctor, once a year. That would be promoting health as a functioning. And that is not what the capabilities approach wants to do, or what Nussbaum or Sen wants development to do. What they want is for people to promote health as a capability, not as a functioning. You could think about promoting religious expression in this way as well. So to promote religious expression as a capability means to make people really positively free to express their faith. Think, for example, of the mosque that was built, I think it was a block or two from Ground Zero where the 9/11 attacks happened. The argument of the Islamic community that wanted to build that mosque was that it was not having a mosque in Lower Manhattan. There was basically no other place where Muslims could go to do their basic religious duties of prayer and worship. And so that was impacting their ability to their religious expression capabilities. And so that is fundamentally different than promoting religious expression as a functioning, right? That would be what we might see in some theocratic societies where people, but the law says you have to go to, temple or to worship. Promoting religious expression as a capability would be very much what Nussbaum and Sen would like to see. You could also look at the sphere of politics. So it would be fine from a capabilities perspective to promote political involvement as a capability. In other words, think here of voter ID laws, right? Some people have said that voter ID laws are a disabling social condition because it impairs people's capability of being politically involved, particularly people who don't drive, who are poor, who don't live near an office that issues voter IDs, and so on. And so the idea of removing voter ID laws has been supported by saying we need to promote political involvement as the positive freedom, the real ability for people to get out and to vote and to be politically involved. And that would be very, very different than promoting political involvement as a functioning, right? That would be like if we mandated that everyone over 18 has to vote, or there would be some sort of penalty. That would be to promote political involvement as a functioning. The idea here is, with the capabilities approach, that functionings are on the other side of choice from capabilities. And this is a quote from Martha Nussbaum's book that you're going to read parts of for today. All should get above a certain threshold level of combined capability, in the sense not of coerced functioning, that would be promoting health, promoting religion, promoting political involvement, but of substantial freedom to choose and act. So that's a little bit about the capabilities approach in advance of your reading for today.